That was a reading about taking the long view. And it's often hard to keep that long view. But the hardship is the possibilities. Because we walk through this forest of demands. We try to find a consistent path, but it's like the trees are calling us from all directions. I'm more beautiful. My fruit is sweet. My maple syrup is sweeter. My height is inspiring. And we see all this beauty and all this fun and interesting stuff, and we walk around and we get lost. And we find as we're living our lives that we have not blazed a trail through the forest. We have wandered off the path. Two roads diverged in the woods, and I wandered into the underbrush to pick blueberries. There is a constant tug of war. We are told to live a purpose-driven life, but also to stop and smell the roses along the way. The roses along the way are not the purpose, and being bogged down with distractions sometimes can prevent an ultimate satisfaction. We're told to avoid instant gratification. Delayed gratification is the hallmark of successful adulthood. When I was a child, I was told a fable about the ant who was hardworking and worked diligently throughout the summer while the lazy grasshopper just played. And when the winter came, the grass was gone and the grasshopper was starving. Meanwhile, the ant was stuffed with the food and self-satisfaction. Now, both the ant and the grasshopper were motivated by pleasure. The grasshopper took his instantly, and the ant waited. The grasshopper stopped and smelled the roses. He lived each moment as if it were his last. Perhaps that grasshopper died that winter, exhausted from all the fun he had, while the ant lived on, anxious about the drudgery of the following summer. Perhaps the ant delayed gratification all the way to his grave. In the spiritual sense, many traditional religions tell us to forego the pleasures of this life so that we have an eternal reward. There's a thing called Pascal's wager. He was a philosopher who said, if I believe in God, then I'm assured that I won't go to hell. And if there is no hell, then that's not a problem. And it was the idea that he was saying that if there was no afterlife, he would lose nothing. But if there was an afterlife, he'd be in trouble. So he might as well bet on the fact that there's a God, the idea that there's a God. But I often wondered if in the instant he was dying, and if he discovered that he was slipping into nothingness, he realized that he did not live the only life he was given. Seize the day, we are told, but we're also told to prepare for the future. Last night at the auction, we were really in the seize the day moment, and I hope the buyer's remorse is not too great this morning, because the frenzy of the moment is quite enlivening. Should we live each day as if it were our last day? Or is today the first day of the rest of your life? Physically, we are told to avoid fast food and to do daily exercise. Yet the TV will tell us about miracle pills and machines that will fix us and make losing weight easier. With our money, we are told to invest in the long term. But what if last September you converted all your stock into cash and spent 25% of it. You still would have lost the money, but think of the fun you would have had. Consider this story. An American investment banker was at the pier of a small coastal Greek village when a small boat with just one fisherman docked, and inside the boat were several large yellowfin tuna. The American complimented the Greek on the quality of the fish and asked, "How long does it take to catch them?" The Greek replied, "Only a little while." The American then asked, "Why didn't he stay out longer and catch more fish?" And the Greek said he had enough to support his family's immediate needs. And he goes, "Well, what do you do with the rest of your time?" He goes, "I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take siesta with my wife, stroll into the village each evening where I sip wine and play cards with my friends. I have a full and busy life." The American scoffed and said, "I am a Harvard MBA and could help you. You should spend more time fishing, and with the proceeds buy a bigger boat, and with the proceeds from the bigger boats you could buy several boats, and eventually you would have a fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catch to a middleman, would sell directly to the processor, eventually opening your own cannery. You could control the product processing and distribution. You would need to leave the small coastal fishing village and move to Athens, then London, and eventually New York, where you would run your expanding enterprise." And the Greek fisherman asked, "But how long will all this take?" To which the American replied, "Probably about 15, 25 years. "But what then?" And the American laughed and said, "That's the best part. When the time is right, you announce an IPO and sell your company's stock to the public and become very rich. You would make millions." "Millions? Then what?" American said, "Then you would retire. You could move to a small coastal village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take siesta with your wife, stroll the village in the evenings, sip wine, and play cards with your friends." I think the Greek fisherman may have had a point. He was living the life he wanted to live now. And he was able to do it because he had simple tastes. Think of your life goals. Who do you want to be? In our membership class this morning, we talked a little bit about who the heroes were in our lives, people who do things that we had admired. And part of having heroes is saying, "I can do that. That is possible for me." Be the person you want to be today. Part of living for today is being prepared. Instead of living in the future, live well today. Instead of worrying about some weight that I want to be at in the distant future, I should imagine what I would do if I lost that weight and start doing it. If I was thinner, I would hike more, and therefore I should probably start walking today because that's who I want to be. If I want to have money in my savings account, I should ask, why do I want money in my savings account? And for me, if I had money, I would worry less about having enough. Well, then maybe I should stop worrying about having enough today and take some of my paycheck and start putting it in my savings. Have that feeling of not worrying as a starting point and not a goal. If I want to stop and smell the roses, I should ask why I want to stop. If it is because I want to appreciate beauty, I should do that today. But if I'm doing it because someone told me to, and it diverts me from my path, I shouldn't do it. I am certain there are people who have had happy, fulfilling lives without ever smelling a rose. If I want to get to heaven, I should ask why I want to get to heaven. If my vision of heaven is peaceful, then I should start living peacefully today. If heaven means forgiveness, then I should start being forgiving today and accept forgiveness for myself. If heaven means spending time with loved ones, then I should spend time with loved ones today, whether my loved ones are living or dead. Because the presence of these flowers today reminds me of when Russ picked me up from the airport and took me around and introduced me to this congregation. And I'm experiencing that now. And I enjoy my long-gone parents whenever I share their story with my son. If my heaven means streets paved with gold, then I probably should start buying some gold today, if that's what I really want. The issue of instant or delayed gratification centers around knowing what you want. Work at something you love every day. It may or may not be the thing you get paid for, but do it anyway. If we do not know what we want, then all we have is instant gratification. We just move from one stimulus to another. And sometimes we might find ourselves adrift. It's unsatisfying unless we decide what we want. And some people might decide what they want is to drift from experience to experience, drinking in everything. And if you've made that choice, then you will choose to be happy no matter what the circumstances. There are people who make fortunes and lose them several times in their lifetime. And that's because they've chosen to. If the whole point is absorbing as many possible experiences as possible, then instant gratification may be a strategy towards that goal. But most of us have other goals. We want to build lives stacking one experience upon another. We want to weave a tapestry, and that involves establishing a pattern in the present moment. And we get some gratification in knowing that we have moved a step closer towards our goal. But the step itself must be in some way satisfying. Think of what you want and be that now. When we think of what we want this church to be, we need to start today. If we want it to welcome more people, then we need to start welcoming and inviting people today. If we want a higher profile in the community, then each of us can tell the community who we are today. If we want to be financially solvent, the plate will be coming by in a little while. If we want a more caring community, reach out to someone today. Ask somebody, maybe someone you've never seen before, how you doing? And find out, and really mean, how are you doing? Wait for an answer other than, fine. If in our personal lives, and we want to have fewer arguments, we could refuse to start arguments today. Of course, if we want things to change, it might be time to start an argument, to lay one's cards on the table and accept the consequences. If we don't know what we want, conflicts will appear to happen randomly and beyond our control. And we probably won't behave as well in that conflict when we are surprised. But if we are aware that we have competing ideas, we can talk with each other, we can reason, and do it in a more caring way. We can ask for what we want. And if the answer is no, then we've learned who not to ask. And we are free to ask somebody else. Focus on your big lifetime wants, not necessarily the thing you want right now. What we do in the present moment should be based on what we really want. People think of delayed gratification as denying oneself pleasure, but it really is being focused in an active pursuit of what you really want. May we bless and be blessed.